What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Ice the Kicker. My name is Glen and Matt, alongside, as always, my broadcast partner, Matt Ferrara. The NFL offseason is officially underway. It's now in that kind of optional training camp and all that kind of stuff part of the summer. So we're getting a little bit closer to actual football being played. The offseason jewel of the NFL happened around a week ago. The NFL draft. It was an absolute production. It was an absolute Broadway show. They had the Kings of Leon do a pregame concert. Just stupid. We can talk about it later, how much we just want the picks. I was at work doing baseball stuff, but there's a TV to the side in the room that we work in, and the draft was on, obviously, because, it was funny because we were all like peeking at the NFL draft while trying to do our job at Major League Baseball. And we were like, when's this going to start? The Jaguars, they weren't on the clock until like 8:15, and the draft they said for months would start at 8. So it was just absurd. Do you want to speak on it before we actually dive down deep into the picks? Like, it's stupid.
Me and Stick were doing like that Twitter Spaces thing with like a bunch of people, which is really awesome, by the way. But we lasted the whole first round, and we started it at like 8, and we went till 12:15. I was like, this is so long, like a little bit too long, just a little bit.
Also, like, when they say the Jacksonville Jaguars are now on the clock, that's not true. They've been on the clock for months, and it still took them half of the time allowed to pick Trevor Lawrence, the guy that we all knew they were going to pick for months and months and months. I don't understand. Is that the NFL's call that they had to wait the 5 minutes of the 10-minute clock, or did the Jaguars actually have to like discuss it and take offers or whatever? It was stupid. But maybe this is just me getting older and just not wanting to deal with the nonsense anymore.
Being impatient.
Maybe I'm just maybe at 24 I've officially become that old man that just hates everything. But I don't know. I wonder what the younger kids, the youngins, what they thought of Kings of Leon kicking off the NFL draft. But the NFL draft happened. Eventually it happened. It was in Cleveland. It was outside. I listen, I love the NFL. I love my Giants. I would never, ever, ever paint my face, put on whatever costume, and stand out in the rain and watch Roger Goodell name off people in college who I've barely seen play on TV. I don't know. Not
for
my
4
thing.
hours.
But I digress. The NFL draft happened, and we're going to talk about it. So obviously, Trevor Lawrence goes number 1 to Clemson. So he is going to join Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars as they try to turn that tide on that franchise that's been a perennial loser ever since forever, as long as I can remember. They went to the AFC Championship game in 98, I think. Or I think Tom Coughlin took them to the AFC Championship one year, long time ago. Obviously, they had that Cinderella run 3 or 4 years ago when they almost beat the Patriots and went to the Super Bowl. But other than that, the organization's been a complete failure. So maybe Trevor Lawrence is the savior of that franchise. And that's what we get every single year. The first quarterback taken in every draft is supposed to be that savior. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. Speaking of savior, Zach Wilson, drafted by the Jets. Again, no surprise. We thought that Wilson would go to the Jets. He ended up going to the Jets. He looks like he's 12. It's really funny.
Yeah.
He was getting roasted with his like pre-draft mirror selfie about how he looks like, a frat kid, 19-year-old frat kid getting ready for his mixer. It was really funny. His family got a lot of attention, especially his mom, for reasons that are not kid friendly for a family friendly podcast. But the real big surprise was Trey Lance. Now, going into the draft, they had Harbaugh on, not Harbaugh. Who am I thinking of? Shanahan was on. Shanahan, yeah. So, forgive me. Shanahan went on a phone interview and basically said, I can't guarantee anyone a roster spot. When they asked if Garoppolo would be on the roster that next Sunday, he said, I can't even tell you if somebody's going to be alive on Sunday, let alone be on the roster, which, told me that he was getting traded. He's not traded yet, but they picked Trey Lance. A lot of people thought Mac Jones would be the guy that they would go at 3, but they ended up going Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. This was kind of the first big shocker of the draft. What was your initial thought when Roger Goodell named or read aloud Trey Lance to the crowd?
Well, it definitely proved my initial intuition that I didn't believe really the Mac Jones hype for a second, and not at 3. That to me it seemed way too high for him, and I thought again I was bigger on Justin Fields, but I can easily see why they went Trey Lance. I mean he is probably the most athletic of all the quarterbacks. That probably runs him and Justin Fields near the fastest 40s out of all of them. Not that that's the be all end all, but I was definitely the most intrigued because like the whole like high ceiling is a big buzzword that a lot of guys throw around, and I think Trey Lance definitely has one of the, I guess, highest ceilings in the sense that you don't really even know what his potential is because I can't lie and say that I've really seen Trey Lance play a real game. Like I've seen some highlights here and there, but there wasn't much footage on him in years past. I think he played like 1 or maybe 2 seasons, but he didn't play this past season besides like 1 game. But I definitely think it was very interesting that they went with him. And I think even more interesting, and I think this is for the better, is that they didn't trade Jimmy G. And just looking at it right now, I don't think they will. I feel like they're going to run with both of them right now. And I think they let it be known to Jimmy G, like, hey, listen, like you're both going to compete for the spot. We're clearly kind of leaning towards Lance, whether it be some point in the middle of this year, maybe even to start the year. I don't know. But I definitely think Jimmy G is going to be staying on the roster for this entire year.
Yeah, it's weird because it's different than the Aaron Rodgers situation from last year, and we can get to Aaron Rodgers later because there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
newsworthy topics involving him and his future. But like last year, when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, you knew it wasn't going to be a competition. You knew that it was
Yeah.
going to be
Mm-hmm.
years before Jordan Love would start for the Packers if he ever did, and then Aaron Rodgers would start until he couldn't or wasn't there anymore, and he might not be. This is a little bit different because Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have the resume that Aaron Rodgers has. So he can very easily be without a starting job with the 49ers come September, October, November. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, even though I'm currently still with the 49ers, I'm very, on edge and nervous about my job security because they just or not wasted, that's the wrong word, used a first round pick on a quarterback who will eventually replace me because they're not going to nobody drafts a quarterback in the first round to not eventually take over. So
And
what
traded
is
up
Jimmy
2 other first
Garoppolo's
rounders to get him.
yeah, trading up with the Dolphins who were originally at 3 to get him. So Trey Lance is definitely going to take the job from him at some point. Now, if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, instead of like being my total focus on helping the 49ers win and having the vote of confidence that I'm the guy for the job, I just took them to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Now in the
Mm-hmm.
back of my mind, I'm a little nervous. I don't really trust the organization that I'm in right now. That it could be really, it can't be a good situation for Jimmy Garoppolo's psyche, reminiscent of what Josh Rosen went through when he was the first round pick of the Arizona Cardinals. And then the very next year they pick Kyler Murray. And then we all know what happened to Josh Rosen. He, he moved to the Dolphins and then he moved away and he hasn't really gotten that next shot since.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I see that exact same scenario and I'm having nightmares at night because I'm like, oh my God, this might be me if I don't step up and have a great training camp and have a great preseason and beginning of the season if I'm named the starter.
Yeah, and I think with Jimmy G's scenario, like you said, it is very different from a Rodgers and Love or a Fitz and Tua, and it is very like you're getting just straight up like legit competition. Like they're gonna battle one for one. But like you said, the bias is obviously gonna lean towards Lance a little bit whenever they feel he's ready. But the interesting thing with the Niners versus the other teams that drafted quarterbacks is that the Niners are in an absolute win now Super Bowl mode. You could argue, obviously, the Patriots are as well, but the Niners are 100% a win now mode, whereas the Jets are still rebuilding. The Jaguars are still rebuilding. The Bears are definitely kind of in that more rebuilding stage. But the fact that they're trying to win now makes me wonder maybe we won't see Trey Lance as soon as maybe we originally thought. And I think that's what's keeping Jimmy G around. And I think Jimmy G's biggest issue is just staying on the field. Yes, he has some turnover history and he's not very good in that category, but his biggest thing is the injuries. And that's what Kyle Shanahan kind of prefaced. And he flat out said, like we like Jimmy, but like he basically doesn't stay on the field. So it's like, how can you bank on that kind of guy year in and year out to be your franchise quarterback? So they saw an opportunity. And again, not to say that Trey Lance can't get injured, but they saw an opportunity to get a potentially great caliber of quarterback, whereas maybe they couldn't in free agency, say.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if Garoppolo gets if he wins the job out of training camp, right? And he completely puts on a show. Now the 49ers need to make a decision because Jimmy forced their hand. Do we trade the guy that we used all these picks on? Or do we trade Garoppolo at his highest of value? That's going to be something that Garoppolo is going to need to do. He's going to have to really push the envelope and force the 49ers to make a difficult decision. It'll be a difficult decision for the 49ers, but it'll be one that they'll be happy to make because it'll mean that they're winning. So if it's an easy decision for the 49ers to move someone, that's a problem because it means that they're probably not winning. But if Garoppolo is winning, then it's a good issue to have. There's a point that I wanted to make and it just left my mind. Garoppolo, yeah, as you said before, Garoppolo, every time he's on the field, he wins. So when he filled in for Brady, when Brady was suspension for Deflategate, he won. That one year he stayed healthy the entire year. They made it to the Super Bowl. Could have very easily won that Super Bowl, but there was the coaching gaffe with whatever Kyle Shanahan's coaching gaffe in another Super Bowl, his second Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He won with the Falcons as the coordinator, one as the head coach. So when Garoppolo's on the field, he wins. So we all kind of knew the second that the Niners traded with the Dolphins to move up, you only trade up with those giving up that kind of package to get that kind of selection. You only do that for a quarterback. You're not doing that for a receiver. You're not doing that for Kyle Pitts, a tight end, a pass catcher. You're not doing it for an offensive lineman. You're doing that for a quarterback. So if the writing's on the wall for Jimmy Garoppolo, it's how is he going to respond? Is he going to respond positively and use it as motivation to have a breakout year, a la what Aaron Rodgers did when they drafted Jordan Love, go out, win the MVP? Or is he going to kind of shrink to that pressure, realize this organization doesn't believe in me, and kind of, not play well and eventually be out of the organization? And who knows if he gets another chance, because as we've seen with guys like Josh Rosen and Marcus Mariota, and maybe Jameis Winston's a little bit of an exception to the rule, people like teams, organizations are now trying to get their own guy, draft their own guy out of college and not kind of pick off the free agent scrap heap of kind of in that island of misfit toys of quarterbacks that are just searching for their next chance. You're not really seeing that other than maybe Winston. So we'll see what happens with Garoppolo and Trey Lance. That'll be a fascinating competition throughout the summer and into the fall. At 4, Kyle Pitts went to the Falcons. We kind of flirted with the idea in our draft preview show that they would pick a quarterback, but they're running it with Matt Ryan, and they're going to give it one more shot, and they're going to have a premier, people saying Hall of Fame potential Kyle Pitts at tight end.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty lofty expectations to put on him, but I think just when you look at what he does, and especially when you look at what he does for his position, being 6'5", 6'6", like 240, something like that, and he runs like a 4.5, those are some pretty insane numbers. And you add him into that wide receiver room, because we'll just consider him wide receiver for right now, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and obviously you still have a very good Matt Ryan, who's probably looking to say, hey, listen, like I'm not on the down and out yet. I'm not ready to retire. I'm ready to still ball out a little bit. So I'm excited to see what that Atlanta offense does. And again, if Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley can stay on the field along with Kyle Pitts, then there's no reason that at the very least the offense can be very good. As far as the whole team's success goes, that's a different story.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. They're under a new regime because obviously Dan Quinn just completely, every time he had a chance, he ruined something. So we'll see what happens under a new regime, new coaching staff. Maybe they catch lightning in a bottle with Matt Ryan, who's rejuvenated over, new play callers and new leaders out there. And Kyle Pitts exerts a little bit of a youthful energy into that offense. They still have talent, obviously.
Yeah.
With Julio Jones, who is, future Hall of Famer. They have Matt Ryan, borderline future Hall of Famer. If you look at the numbers, in my opinion, why not? That division doesn't scare me. I know it's not the best division in football, so why can't they run it? Obviously, also expanded playoffs and extended season. A lot more teams are going to go for that. And, not a big quarterback draft class next year. So I think they're banking on Ryan to give them 2 more productive seasons rather than just 1 more and then, get a guy next year. I think they're looking at Matt Ryan to extend his career a little bit longer than maybe you and me kind of realized.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Jamar Chase goes to the Bengals. We thought they might go offensive line because we don't know what Burrow is going to be next year, if he is
Mhm.
anything at all. But they saw Jamar Chase. They said, this is the guy we have to have. We have to give Burrow a toy. So he's going to, I feel bad because his rookie numbers probably aren't going to be great this year. And
Mhm.
because we don't know who's throwing the football out in Cincinnati. So he might not have the best statistical numbers his rookie season. And then sophomore year, quote unquote sophomore year, he might completely take off with Burrow under center. So we might need to wait a little while before we can see the full NFL potential of Jamar Chase. At 6, here we go. The Dolphins. The Dolphins took Jalen Waddle. You hit the nail on the head. This is the guy they got. This is the guy they wanted.
Mhm.
I have another close buddy who lives in Florida who's a Dolphins fan, and he really wanted Pitts, and he was kind of upset when they made that trade with San Francisco. But as we alluded to it for like a month now, this was a win-win situation for the Dolphins. Whoever was going to fall to 6 is going to be a premier pass catcher for Tua. It happens to be Jalen Waddle, and they got that Tyreek Hill kind of dude to take a slant 85 yards from Tua. So your instant analysis for the Dolphins pick, I went on the spaces to see
Mhm.
if you were going to do a live reaction there. You didn't. You were muted.
Yeah, because
So
everything was just
I was
it was
upset.
like
I was
some was
upset about
delayed and
that. I
stuff
was
like that.
looking. I was hoping Instagram Live like last year or something, but that's a once you can't recreate something like that.
No,
So
that was different.
the instant analysis from the Ferrara household about the Jalen Waddle pick.
I was pumped. We were all pumped. That was a guy that I kind of wanted from day one. I started off saying I want Jalen Waddle, then it shifted towards Pitts, then it shifted towards Chase, and then Smith, and then Sewell, then back to Waddle towards the end. But Waddle was the guy that I wanted, and I think him getting hurt last year, similar to like Jamar Chase, whereas like you didn't really get to see how great he was. And again, this isn't to knock any of the other pass catchers that got drafted because I think they're all going to be very, very, very good. But Waddle was the guy that I thought, again, being a teammate of Tua's is automatically that's awesome. I think his speed is something that can make him an elite player. And he's not like a gadget receiver either. Because like the Dolphins have guys on their team that are fast, like Jakeem Grant, but they're not necessarily the greatest receivers. Like Jalen Waddle can high point a 50-50 ball, even though he's only 5'10. He's got freakish explosiveness that you alluded to before with taking a slant to the house. And he wins early at the line. So if you try to press him, he's going to create that separation early. And that's a quarterback, especially Tua, with the style of kind of quick passing offense they try to create. They want to see guys and have guys on their roster that are gonna create space early and make it a little bit easier for the quarterback to read which kind of guy he wants to go to. So I thought Jalen Waddle was a perfect pick there. And again, it just I can't wait to see how dynamic he is in that wide receiver room because again, last year, like I don't think people realize like how bad of a receiver room we had. And part of it was just because the talent wasn't on the roster. And the other part was the talented guys we had and like Devontae Parker and Preston Williams they would get hurt. So it was like we were running games with like our special team gunners as our number one wide receiver option. So it's one of those things that I don't think people outside of like the Dolphins fandom understand. And and again, that's not knocking anything. That's just how it is. Like I don't expect outside viewers to know like the Dolphins wide receiver depth chart, but like it was very, very poor in the grand scheme of other NFL wide receiver rooms. And that's why, like you talked about earlier with the Bengals going Chase, kind of definitely made me scratch my head that they didn't go Sewell. But again, sticking with the Dolphins, I was pumped that they went Waddle. And I think he's going to be a guy that you plug and play on day one, and he's going to instantly help you. There's really no waiting with him.
Yeah, he can do it all. He can put him out wide. You can put him in the slot, obviously. 5'10", 180, a little undersized, but we've seen in recent years that doesn't really matter for receivers anymore. I think Odell
Mm-hmm.
Beckham kind of broke that mold of little guys
Mm-hmm.
that can, be huge in big spots, and be that number one. Guys like Julian Edelman, same kind of thing. So Jalen Waddle is the guy for the Dolphins at 6. You look at the Dolphins now and you add Jalen Waddle into that receiver room. My concern for the Dolphins would be red zone offense because they don't really because kind of the idea for Pitts was that when you get
Mm-hmm.
inside the 20-yard line, he's a matchup nightmare as a tight end. Now, if you're bringing in a guy like Waddle, he's fantastic, maybe outside of the 20s, But,
Mhm.
when you're in there and you stack the box and there's a lot less room to work with, that kind of negates Waddle's biggest strength, which is his speed. What
The
do you think
speed,
about
yeah.
that?
I mean, I think that's a perfect analysis right there, and I think that's where they have a decently versatile wide receiver room where you have guys like Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki, and they drafted a third round tight end Hunter Long, who's more of a kind of pass catching. He's like 6'5". So to your point, like you said, you have guys like Waddle and Will Fuller to basically get you into the red zone from wherever you are. And then you're hoping that these bigger guys you have for those 50-50 balls when you're in the red zone. And something too, obviously, in the red zone that I think they definitely struggled. Red zone offense was pretty bad, but the red zone offense rushing was even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So
And that kind
again,
of brings me to the next point as we jump around a little
mhm,
bit and not just go one pick after the other. We
mhm,
jumped to 18, and you were banging the drum of Najee Harris for
mhm,
forever. And they didn't
yeah,
go that route. They went defensive end, and I got in front of me
Jalen
Jalen
Phillips.
Phillips out of Miami, so he doesn't need to go far to
Mhm,
he can
yeah,
just stay in the dorm room, I guess, and be an
yeah.
NFL player. So they don't go running back. I know you're disappointed in that, but now that we've had like 10 days to kind of marinate on that pick, are you still disappointed that they didn't get Najee Harris, or um do you think that running back could potentially come from somewhere else?
Um, I think a little both. I definitely wanted Najee. I wanted him pretty bad. I think what ended up happening is that 18 was almost too good of a pick where the Dolphins, who clearly don't really value running backs because their running back room consists of a seventh rounder in Miles Gaskin, an undrafted running back in Salvin Ahmed, and another seventh rounder they drafted this year in a guy from Cincinnati. So clearly they're not on board with drafting running backs early or even paying them. So I kind of had to accept, like you said, in these 10 days that if they're not really going to value running backs, I'm going to pump the brakes on them too. And again, I think Najee Harris was perfect for this kind of offense and this team,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think that their need for edge was just so huge. And they were saying that Jalen Phillips was a guy that if you take away his concussion medical history, that maybe could have gone top 15, maybe top 12. So I think at that standpoint, the Dolphins clearly went with their big board there and went best player available. And they said like they were pumped to get Jalen Phillips. They even said like, oh, we didn't think you were going to fall to us. So can't really be mad at that. Again, the Dolphins aren't in a position yet to splurge on running backs. And I think that's where like someone like we talked about earlier in past episodes, how like the Buccaneers can easily get any one of the running back, like the big three running backs when if available, and it would be perfectly fine because they can. Like same with the Chiefs last year getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So we just weren't there yet as a team, and to try to build the team with getting a running back in the first round, I guess.
Yeah, and you're going to eventually need someone in the backfield to be some sort of threat. And we talked about the red
Mhm.
zone. That's the perfect time to have your running back as a threat in the red zone,
Yeah.
especially a dual threat running back that can also catch passes.
hmm
It would make Tua's life much easier if that play action threat was there.
hmm
But, you hope that maybe one of the guys that are already in the room kind of takes the next step in development, or maybe there's an undrafted free
Yeah.
agent coming in, or
hmm
a late round draft pick. I don't know. I don't know the whole draft at the top of my head, but you
Yeah.
would think that someone needs to step up back in the backfield, not to be a all Pro Bowl kind of running back, but just to
hmm
keep defenses honest, right? And with the quarterback as polarizing as Tua, and how a lot of people, most NFL experts, people who do podcasts like you and me, and people who write, it seems everybody's 50-50 on Tua. Some people think he could be great. Some people think that he's not. So when you have a quarterback like that, you need to kind of plug in everything around him as successful as possible. So maybe you don't get the running back this year, but that still needs to be on, I guess, the wish list eventually for Tua.
I feel like they're just kind of going the Patriot way where they're like I think they're like on the complete other end of the spectrum where it's like you have say like a team like the Giants who spent the second rounder on Saquon or the second overall pick on Saquon, and they're probably going to pay him the biggest contract, which is again that's what they feel. That's perfectly fine. At least they're buying into kind of their mantra and what they want to do. And then you have teams like the Patriots, and now what I'm assuming is teams like the Dolphins, where it's like, listen, we don't care who's back there. we'll have just a platoon full of guys. We're not going to get attached to the name. We're just going to get attached to their production and kind of what they can do. And I guess just build through that offensive line to try to help the run game. And that's something that I've talked about years ago that I'm not a big fan of spending big money on running backs, but I am coming around to it in years past, as you're seeing with how successful guys like Aaron Jones and Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry are. So maybe the Dolphins,
but you have to be ready to win to do that. You can't be
I think so too. Yeah.
You can't be rebuilding and then that's where the Giants made their mistake. Like, let's be honest, like Saquon's they went into that draft thinking that Saquon is going to be this Hall of Fame guy, this transcendent star, generational running back. And he might still be that. But the problem is the Giants weren't ready to win at that point. So it seems like a waste. And, they haven't made the playoffs in his first 3 years. Now, if you're ready, like if you're the Buccaneers, if you're the Chiefs, if you're maybe the Dolphins at this point, got a team like the Steelers that got Najee Harris, and they're a team that perennially wins and they need to retool now. That's when you get the running back. I say it time and time again, the Giants were too quick to get a running back. And even though Barkley's great, hasn't really translated into a lot of W's. And that's the end of the game. That's the name of the game at this point. So the Dolphins have a plan. And when they're ready to strike on a running back, I think that's when they will. So it all depends on Tua. Getting that running back depends on how important and how Tua succeeds or not succeeds. So big 2021 for the Dolphins. And obviously you're a Dolphins fan. You're on this podcast. We're going to talk about the Dolphins every week. Going back into the top 10, Lions, they're going to protect Jared Goff with Penei Sewell. So he's the best offensive tackle taken. J.C. Horn goes to the Panthers. We thought that they would be a team that would help Sam Darnold out, maybe get a receiver, but they also have McCaffrey. They have Darnold's former teammate, Robbie Anderson. So they didn't need to spend a top 10 tick on a weapon. So they're going to get their cornerback. He's the first cornerback taken. Now we got to 9. And this is where it got interesting because when the draft was happening, I was like, okay, great. Broncos, they're going to take Fields. And then the Cowboys are going to take Surtain. And then that's going to leave the Giants with Smith. Did not work that way. And I was very upset about it. So when the Broncos picked Patrick Surtain from Alabama at 9, I kind of froze and I was like, this can't be good because now where is Dallas going to go? Because you knew Dallas was going defense and you knew the Giants were next. So I was like doing the math in my head. I'm like, if this goes here and this goes there, the Giants are going to have Smith and they're going to have a chance to take Smith and they will take Smith. Once Surtain went to the Broncos, because I thought for sure that the Broncos would take Fields, I was like, oh no. And then I saw Dallas made a trade. I was like, oh no. And then they said Dallas traded with Philadelphia. And I was like, oh fuck. First of all, I couldn't believe it happened because when do not Phillies? I'm an idiot. When I'm thinking baseball. When do the Eagles and Cowboys trade with each other? It's just unheard of. Those teams despise each other. Everybody
especially
in the NFC,
in the first round.
Yeah. Everybody in the NFC East absolutely despises each other. There's no way they would trade with each other. They did. So the Eagles went from 11. No, I'm sorry. They went from 12 to 10. Dallas went back to 12. And that left the Giants at 11. So the Eagles take Smith. When that happened, I was completely devastated. I could not believe that, the Eagles, they fucked the Giants over week 17, right? They fucked the Giants over in the draft. I hate them more than anything. And I hate Dallas too. It's like they both conspired to fuck over the Giants. I could not believe it. So the Eagles got Devontae Smith. As upset as I am about the Giants not getting him, I not entirely sure if that's the right move for Philly there. Bias aside, because the Eagles have a lot of problems, and I'm not sure a wide receiver is the band-aid that can get the Eagles from the complete dumpster fire they are now, getting rid of Peterson, getting rid of Wentz, completely starting over, an unknown in Jalen Hurts. And now you get the receiver, kind of like what we were talking about 2 seconds ago about the Giants too fast on the running back, getting Barkley when they weren't ready to win. It kind of reeks of the same desperation by the Eagles to get relevant as soon as possible. If it works, then they look like geniuses. If it doesn't work, they look very, very bad.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is everybody in the Eagles organization knows that they basically fumbled on their last two wide receiver choices with JJ Arcega-Whiteside 2 years ago over DK Metcalf, and then last year with Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. So I think they saw this as a chance to kind of right those wrongs, and that's where, like you said before, it gets kind of desperate and especially dangerous to try to kind of try to like hide the past. Like you're not necessarily learning from it. And listen, I think Devontae Smith is going to be great. I think it's a good pick for the Eagles, but like you said, maybe there was a better option, specifically maybe like a guy like Rashawn Slater for them, or even a guy maybe like Micah Parsons too, someone who maybe adds a little bit more positional value for them. But it was just the whole thing was just crazy again, and I think the biggest thing, even bigger than Surtain going, was J.C. Horn going, because I thought you thought as well that the Cowboys would go cornerback, and I think everybody thought that too, and clearly they were gonna as well, but they were like, all right, we're not gonna get the third best cornerback in the draft at number 10. Like that just didn't make any sense. So just and again, what a crazy situation. And I think part of it maybe being that, hey, don't you have a new GM in Philly right now and a new head coach? So maybe they kind of put away the old like divisional bias and then say, hey, we're willing to make a deal.
Now, what kind of bothered me, because I think a week later, a couple days later, I think Dave Gettleman went on WFAN. I was listening to the interview, and Maggie Gray, the midday host, asked Gettleman straight up, did the Cowboys also call you about trading up that one spot, or did this blindside you? And, Gettleman said he never made a call to Dallas. Now, I feel like that's kind of a bad job. Even if you wouldn't pull the trigger on a trade. And he said the same thing about Aaron Rodgers. When Maggie Gray asked him, would you call on Aaron Rodgers? He's like, that's none of my business. Well, yeah, it is your business because you're the general manager of an NFL team. You need to check every single box. And the fact that the Giants didn't contact Dallas on draft night and haven't at least kicked the tires on Aaron Rodgers, that's just not fulfilling your duty as the general manager, in my opinion, if you're Dave Gettleman. Now, we're going to talk about the trade in like 2 seconds because the Giants are the next pick. But, if the Cowboys were willing to trade with the Eagles, they were going to be willing to trade with the Giants.
Yeah, just to pin the two against each other and kind of have a little bit of a bidding war. And I feel like, obviously, kind of alluding to where the Giants ended up going with wide receiver later in the draft, clearly they were going to go with a wide receiver, specifically their guy. So it was interesting to see that they weren't willing to give up just a little bit more to go get Devontae Smith.
So the Eagles traded their 12 and then the 3rd round pick for the 10th for Smith. And you think, if you're the Giants, if you're a Giants fan, would you have been willing to match that with the 3rd pick for that 3rd round pick? And, Gettleman obviously had a plan, because the second that happened, he made, a trade. And it wasn't his first trade it wasn't his last trade of the draft. He made a trade with the Dolphins, funny enough, later on in the next day. So the Giants trade with the Bears to move back to 20, where they got Kadarius Toney, and the Bears, they got Justin Fields. So the Giants I know they got 1st round next year. The entirety of the trade is slipping my mind right now, but the most important thing is they moved down from 20, got a 1st round pick in the 2022 draft. So they're going to have 2 1s next year, which is important. And we'll talk about that in a second, but we'll start with Fields because that's important. Fields goes to the Bears. Now they got Andy Dalton, and we ripped them for it. And we were like, what the hell? They sent that tweet that said QB1 and a picture of Andy Dalton, and that was insulting to the fan base. It was horrible. But they ended up getting Justin Fields, and we're both big Justin Fields guys. Think he's being disrespected immensely over the last couple months throughout this whole process of the draft. They're not bad. You said maybe they'd be. I think you said earlier in the show that they're not really ready. They're kind of rebuilding. I'm not sure that's entirely true, because they had Mitch Trubisky last year and they made the playoffs.
That's a good point.
They're going to have Justin Fields, and they're going to have a good defense, and they're bringing back Allen Robinson. So that pick the Giants will get in the first round might not be a top 10 that some people are predicting. Because I've seen a lot of, the Bears are going to be bad. The Giants are going to be top 15, top 10 pick. I would pump the brakes on that for a little bit, because especially if Aaron Rodgers leaves the division, then the Bears might have a pick in the 20s.
Yeah, I mean, I saw too, and I know like everyone does like those way too early mock drafts, and it had the Giants, the Bears pick, it had them at like 8 or 7 or 8, and I was like, it's like interesting, and I was like obviously like you're thinking, all right, rookie quarterback comes in, doesn't do too well, but it's like you said before too, and that was obviously I was wrong saying that they were a team that's not really ready to win. I think like you said, when you really kind of take a step back and look at the defense, they are ready to win, and they did make the playoffs at least, even though they got beat by the Saints in the first round of the playoffs. They still made it. Doesn't matter what record, they still made it. So if you at least make it for the Bears, that puts that draft pick for the Giants in at what, like at least 18, something like that.
At least 18, yeah. And you would think that you would hope, if you're a Giants fan, that this is the year they make the next step and win 10 games and maybe sneak into the playoffs somehow, whether it be winning the division, one of the wild cards. So it might be 2 mid to late round first round picks. Now, any first round pick's a good pick. You love first round picks, but if Giants fans are kind of penciling in the Giants at a top 10 pick, top 5 pick in the draft via the Bears, I got to tell you something. Yeah. I don't think that's a guarantee at all.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree.
I still think you make the trade. Once Smith is off the board, I still think you make the trade. And I'm not saying that Gettleman didn't make a good trade. I'm just saying that it very well could be a late first round pick. And if it's a late first round pick, then for the Bears, from a Bears perspective, it's a slam dunk that you make this trade to get Justin Fields, who might end up being the best quarterback in the draft, minus maybe Trevor Lawrence.
I think this was a perfect situation for the Bears. And again, they saw that there was a chance to get ahead of the Patriots, who clearly were going after a quarterback. And there was a picture, I remember, of Kyle Shanahan and next to the coach, Ryan Day of Ohio State, at one of Justin Fields' pro day. And the other coach, NFL coach, next to both of them was Matt Nagy of the Bears. So I think they clearly had their eyes on Justin Fields. It also came out that the Saints would have taken Justin Fields. It came out that the Vikings even would have taken Justin Fields. And I tipped the cap to the Bears to trade up whatever they gave up. And they said, hey, listen, like, he's going to be our guy. Even though we gave up another first round pick and some more and change, it is what it is. We got our guy. That's kind of all that matters.
And the Patriots now, because they took Mac Jones, the Patriots probably would have taken Justin Fields if they were there too. So, the Bears saw an opportunity because of the Eagles-Cowboys trade, and they pounced on it. So I think this is a trade that could work out for both teams, depending on how things fall. Now, the Giants used that 20th overall pick on a wide receiver from Florida, Kadarius Toney. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, Matt. I've never seen any Kadarius Toney games. Like, the first time I ever saw him play was after I got home from work on draft night, and I YouTubed highlights of Kadarius Toney. I don't know anything about him, but it seems like he's a speed guy, and he'll eventually take the place of Sterling Shepard once that contract kind of expires. So right now the Giants have Galladay, they got Shepard, they got Slayton, they got Toney, they're gonna have Barkley behind. They're gonna have Barkley in the backfield, and then Ingram hopefully learns how to catch the ball over the offseason. So the Giants are giving Daniel Jones every single opportunity to be successful. They're giving him all the help he can get, all the toys that he can play with. And now he needs to put up or shut up, because the kind of hidden kind of gem of this trade is that second first round pick next year could easily be used on a quarterback. I know it's not the greatest quarterback draft class in the world next year, but it could be used on a quarterback in the draft, or used to acquire a quarterback via trade with someone else if Jones doesn't show in year 3 that he could be a guy that could lead the Giants deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start off first with Kadarius Toney. Again, he is, when you compare him to the other wide receivers who are more like, Waddle is more of a slot but can play outside. Toney, I would say, is more pigeonholed to in the slot, which again is fine. It is what it is. Tyreek Hill makes his living there. It's perfectly fine, but he is fast. He is very, very explosive. He's fast, very similar to Jalen Waddle in that regard, very shifty. Also can help on punt and kick returns too. Now, again, similar to the Dolphins, where I don't really want my first rounder fielding punts and kickoffs because I feel like that's just there's
No.
way too many injuries there. But Kadarius Toney is a very good receiver. Now, first round, I guess maybe a little bit of a reach, maybe just because, like you said, you have Shepard, you have Slayton there. But I mean, I put it this way: I think Kadarius Toney is the type of receiver that the Giants don't currently have on their roster. So I applaud Gettleman for making that move in that regards, getting a guy that isn't a carbon copy of who they have, even though he plays a similar position, the slot, as other receivers they have. But I think he adds a dynamic to them that will kind of bolster that offense in ways that it wasn't previously.
Yeah, they're clearly reading between the lines of how this draft went. They're clearly hell bent on wide receiver. They drop back, and let's be honest, they took a risk going down to 20 because there's no guarantee that Toney was going to be there. I mean, teams like Washington, maybe Las Vegas, maybe Arizona, they could have been teams that could have taken Toney because they might need another slot receiver.
Yeah.
But it worked out. Now I thought it was interesting because Urban Meyer was praying. Apparently, came out, said he was really hoping Toney would fall to him, and he didn't. So that makes you feel better. Not that Urban Meyer is
actually, yeah.
But one very successful football coach wanted someone, and the Giants took him. So that makes you feel good as a Giants fan.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean Toney's going to work out, but
yeah, no, I agree with you there.
So the Giants, I thought when they moved back initially, I was like, oh, they're going to go defense now. The Kwity Paye was there. He ended up going in the next pick to Indianapolis. Giants still need that pass rusher. We'll see when they get it. Either they have the rest of the offseason to do something, or maybe they wait till next year with one of their 2 first-round picks to get an edge guy. But this is what they're going to run with. They thought and they decided that we need to get Daniel Jones ready, and they need to get him prepared with a roster that's worthy of really kind of analyzing what he can do. And as I said, Barkley, Ingram, Shepard, Slayton, Golladay, Toney. You don't have an excuse if you're Daniel Jones. If you don't play well, that's on you. There's no more apologies for Daniel Jones. It's year 3. It's year 2 under Joe Judge, year 2 under Jason Garrett, and you got all these toys to play with. As a Giants fan, I need to see significant improvement, not only personally or individually with Daniel Jones, but record-wise with the team, because it's a make or break year for him. And let's be honest, if the Giants go 5-12 because there's one more game this year, Gettleman's going to go too. It's been 10 years. That's too much in Giants lines. It can't keep happening.
Yeah. So I was going to say, what is like your way too early, I guess we could say, like point where you would be like, if they were this record, you would be happy. Not necessarily over the rainbow here, but happy enough.
It's hard to do math in my head because I for whatever reason I can't do math with the extra game, so I can't say like 10-6 anymore because that doesn't happen.
10.
So I'd have to say, I want 10 wins, so I would go 10-7.
Or is it a playoff berth at any means?
Yeah, I think either a playoff or either a wild card under 10 wins or 10 wins. Like if they go 10 wins and they don't make the playoffs, because that's just the way the NFC works out. Because it's happened to the Giants before. I remember the year after they won the Super Bowl the second time, they went 10-6 the next year, didn't make the playoffs. If they go 10-7, I'm good. I think that's enough because they've been hovering around the 6-10 to 8-8 for way too long now. It's time to make that next step if you're Daniel Jones, and you got to lead them to 10 wins. And you look at their schedule, and it's not daunting. I mean, you do play the Chiefs, you do play the Buccaneers, you do play even your Dolphins. There's good teams, but every team plays good teams.
Within their division, there's nothing
the
that
division's
scares
not good.
you.
The division's not good.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what happens if Dak comes back. If Dak comes back and he's healthy, the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East. There's no doubt in my mind. But, maybe he doesn't. And, the Redskins don't scare me. The Eagles are a mess. So why not? Why can't the Giants challenge Dallas for the division? So that's kind of my that's me and my soapbox with the Giants this week. So
I got you.
I had to get it out of the way. One more pick of the first round we'll go through because I don't want to go through every single pick. We did the important ones.
Mhm.
Let's talk Patriots. Let's talk Mac Jones. Kind of shocking. I was kind of under the impression that Jimmy G would eventually be the Patriots because I felt like that was just a match made in heaven, and that I thought they were like flirting with each other the entire week. But they go Mac Jones. He's going to compete with Cam Newton. And I think that this is a Bill Belichick move. I mean, you look at Mac Jones, not a guy that's going to move around the pocket.
Mhm.
Who does that remind you of? That reminds you of Tom Brady. So I think that we're trying to recreate the greatest of all time, and they're gonna give Mac Jones the first shot at it. Now, what does he start week one is remains to be seen. But 6'3", 217. It's a lot like Brady.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
everything. I mean, and then obviously Belichick and Saban have a great relationship. And again, I think I definitely think Mac Jones was easily like the fifth best quarterback in this draft class, and that's obviously why he was taken fifth in the first round. And again, I think it makes sense for the Patriots. Again, I applaud them for taking a chance on him because we've seen that Belichick obviously hasn't taken a first round quarterback ever because he didn't have to. So it was one of those situations where it just made sense. Even if there was other kind of value there, and you could have got a guy like Trask in the second round, say it just made sense. And clearly they liked Mac Jones enough. I was honestly kind of intrigued just thinking about it now that they didn't try to trade up to get maybe like Justin Fields because they have a ton of draft capital. So I guess that they valued Mac Jones over him because again, I find it hard to believe that they didn't have the assets to try to
I
jump
don't
and,
know if
and
they
do
would
what
have. I don't
Chicago
know.
did.
Maybe I'm sure the Giants called them and they said that the Bears are going to give them their one next year. And I don't think I can't see the Patriots doing that ever.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, I mean the Patriots, they love their kind of roster shakeup. They clearly love free agency this year, and I think they need to get back to their roots of drafting well, which is something that in the past couple of years they've kind of strayed away from. Not obviously intentionally, but it's going to be interesting to see what the Patriots do. And again, I think me and you both agree that Cam Newton is just not a good quarterback. So opposed to what we were saying with Trey Lance, where it might be a little bit longer till we see him. I think you might see Mac Jones week one. Who knows?
I think he's the best. If you give me, if you give me Lance and you give me Mac Jones, I think Mac Jones has a better chance than Lance to start week one.
I think so too.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's a copycat league. You look at the quarterbacks in that division. You got Tua, first round pick, young quarterback going to start. You got Josh Allen, obviously first round pick, young quarterback going to start. And now you got Zach Wilson from the Jets, young quarterback, first round pick, who most likely start.
I don't even know who the backup is.
Yeah, I don't know who the backup is. He's going to start.
Yeah.
So the Patriots, they can't run out Cam Newton in that division. They just can't do it. We did not see enough last year for us to think that he's a guy that's going to compete for a division. Now he might have a couple great games here and there over the course of 17-week season, but for him to compete with Josh Allen and Tua, if he takes the next step, and if the Jets get what they think they're going to get from Zach Wilson, then the Patriots are on the outside looking in of that division, and they needed to react, and they got Mac Jones. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with
Mm.
Mac Jones because he's obviously, I think he's been the most polarizing quarterback of the draft. Like people are very high or either very very low on him. So
Yeah. I think just with Mac Jones too. The last thing with in regards to the Patriots is that clearly the Patriots are selling out and they're trying to win now with the crazy contracts that they give out. That the record uh yearly record for most money spent in one off season. So clearly they're trying to win right now or in this next kind of 1 to 3 years max window. And when you compare Mac Jones to Cam Newton, like what does Cam Newton do better than Mac Jones besides maybe read defenses? And usually that just kind of comes with experience. And I feel like Mac Jones is a smart enough quarterback where he's going to pick up on that sooner than later. So again, all eyes would to me point to Mac Jones being the starting quarterback on day one. Now it's going to be lofty goals for him because, like I said before, they're in a win now mode with a guy who only has one collegiate or 1.5 when Tua got hurt, like collegiate seasons as a starter under his belt. So very interested to see what happens there in New England.
Yeah, we'll definitely say Belichick always seems to get the most out of his guys, so
Mm-hmm.
in all likelihood, it'll probably work out, right?
Yeah, yeah,
who are we to
agreed.
kind of question what Belichick does? The biggest
Mm-hmm.
story on draft night had nothing to do with any of the guys picked. It was Aaron Rodgers decided to come out on draft night. Now, he might have this might have been all season, but this is when it got reported by Adam Schefter
Mm-hmm.
that he wants out of Green Bay. So this doesn't surprise me on the surface. It surprises me because every time you hear about, a generational like franchise guy, the face of a franchise, probably the best player in Packers history, arguably. If you want to go Bart Starr, go ahead. If you want to go Brett Favre, go ahead. But, Aaron Rodgers has been the guy for Green Bay forever now. And anytime you hear this with guys that are faces of franchises wanting to leave that organization, it's always a surprise in any sport, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
basketball, whether it's baseball, whether it's whatever. But when you look into it, it doesn't surprise you because the Packers haven't helped him, even when Aaron Rodgers has, specifically asked them to help him. I mean, they draft a quarterback, his replacement, in the first round when obviously he had a lot left in the tank, winning the MVP the next year. They
Mm-hmm.
never get him a receiver. They never buy him a receiver. They never like put anything around him. It's always just him on his own. You add into all of this the fact that in the playoff game, in the NFC Championship game, they decide to kick instead of letting the MVP of the league go for it on fourth down at the 7-yard line, wherever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And, all these things add up, and Aaron Rodgers eventually he just blows up and he's like, I can't do this anymore with this organization. So what's the likelihood that this gets actually happens and he leaves? And, do you think that do you think it's in the best interest of him to leave? Or do you think he should just stick it out and preserve his legacy as a one team kind of all time great?
I just think that their team is too good right now for him to leave. And like I said, I get some of his gripe. I understand that, but like his offensive line, which again I feel like to him is more important than his receivers. His offensive line is probably top 5 in the league. You have the best left tackle in the league in David Bakhtiari, so can't really be too mad there. You still have the best wide receiver, I think, in the league in Devontae Adams. Like, and I understand his points is, hey, we need some more. Totally get that. I understand, but it's like they're a successful team. So it's like, do you really want to come off that? Like it was different where Matt Stafford was like, hey, I don't want to stick around with the rebuilding Lions. So he left and then he got traded to the Rams. I don't know like where Aaron Rodgers would go that would make sense. Like it's
Yeah,
just like
what
you're gonna go,
realistically gives him a better chance to win the Super Bowl than where he is currently?
and I think that's the ultimate kind of factor here, and that's why I think he's just gonna stay because again, like the all eyes point to maybe like the Broncos or maybe the Raiders. Like can you imagine Aaron Rodgers and John Gruden? Because I can't. I think that would be terrible. That would be awful. So
I can't
again,
either.
I just think Green Bay, they're still a great team. And I still think he really likes Matt LaFleur and they have good chemistry there because offensively he's winning MVP. So it's like, how do you come off of that and go somewhere else? In my eyes, it just doesn't seem to make too much sense.
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to think of somewhere where the grass would be greener. Denver. I heard rumblings that Denver's kind of the favorite if there is one.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is Denver better than Green Bay roster
No,
wise? Like
like
I
no
don't think
way.
so.
No,
I,
yeah.
I I feel like this has to be some sort of negotiation tool. Now, what is he negotiating? I don't know. I don't know if he's up for an extension soon, if he wants one.
Mhm.
Um, I just think he wants to be heard. I think he just wants them to
Yeah.
know that he's angry. And he
Which
has the right to
that's
do that
fair.
because,
Yeah.
they really haven't done he has a very legitimate gripe against Green Bay because the fact that he only has one Super Bowl and hasn't been back to the Super Bowl since that one, which was now what, 10 years ago? That's kind
Mhm.
of absurd if you think about how great he is and how great the Packers have been
And it's never
consistently
been yeah,
over
it's never
over the
been
past dozen years.
Yeah, it's never been his fault either. So that's why, like, you could say, like some fans might be like, "Oh, well, he's on the team too. He could have got them there." Like, no, like he's legitimately done everything in his power to get them to a Super Bowl. But whether it be the defense fails one day or the wide receivers just don't seem to be panning out that day, whatever it may be. Like he's one of the only players in the league, and that's why I honestly think he's the best in the league, that he always does everything damn near perfect. Like everything he does. Like you're never gonna look at a Packers game and be like, damn, Aaron Rodgers could have played a little bit better, because he always plays great, at least from the past couple of years.
It'll be interesting to see over the course of the summer how deep this goes. Like if he's willing to sit out games and hold out a training camp, then maybe we'll start taking this a little bit seriously. It's being taken seriously, obviously, because it's Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think anyone truly believes he won't play for the Packers. So like until he starts sitting out and takes fines and doesn't play in games, then I'm just going to chalk this up to kind of him stirring drama and just trying to let the organization know that he's angry. But you know, at the end of the day, Rodgers, wherever he goes, and probably Green Bay, they'll be right back in the mix of the Super Bowl again next year. And they 2 years in a row, they made it to the NFC Championship game. So they're not far off. They're right knocking on the door. They just need to win that championship game. I mean, 2 years ago, they lost to the 49ers. They got killed. And then last year, obviously, the Buccaneer game where they didn't go for it crazy, inexplicably didn't go for it on that fourth down. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, if Brady can take a Buccaneers team to the Super Bowl and win it, then Rodgers, I mean, if he can go anywhere, I guess maybe, and he can win a Super Bowl. But
I just feel like we talked about in past episodes too, how the NFC definitely seems to be a little bit weaker right now than the AFC, where it's like kind of the same deal. It's like, why not just stay with Green Bay, unless there's another NFC team out there?
And the difference between Brady and Rodgers is that Brady is a free agent, and it was only going to cost the team cap space. When if you're going to trade for Rodgers, you're going to have to give up a whole draft, maybe, like
for a 38-year-old quarterback.
For a 38-year-old
even though he's the best,
it might not even be worth it.
Yeah, I think it's a tough situation for both teams, and people try comparing it to Deshaun Watson. Like, no, like Deshaun Watson's 25. Like, you could have this guy for the next 10 years. Aaron Rodgers is 38.
We had this conversation when Watson was in demand. Obviously, for many reasons, he's not anymore. But if you're the Dolphins, would you do it?
Again, it's just I don't think it makes sense. It just like it's just
all those draft picks you'd have to give up all of them.
That's what I mean. And it's like, listen, if you got Aaron Rodgers again, would he make the team better? Of course, absolutely, of course.
But not in 5 years. Not 5 years from now.
That's what I mean. Like you're like, again, like with Deshaun Watson is all right. If you get him, you have a nice like 4 to say like maybe 8-year window to kind of compete for a Super Bowl, which makes sense. With Rodgers, like you're looking at a 3-year window. Like that's it. Like nothing else after that, really. Just because you can't really bank on him to do what Brady's been doing.
Yeah.
So it's just you can't, and that's why I don't know what teams would, maybe besides the Broncos, but I don't know what they have to give up.
Yeah. So, you know, he's going to be a Packer. Like
I think so. I can't see him anywhere else.
This is just some off-season talking points, I guess. Another off-season talking point drove me crazy today. Like I was in the mall. I looked at my phone. I got a notification. I got a text actually from someone that's like, "Why is Tebow getting all these chances?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? Is he like back in baseball? Did another minor league team sign him?" And then I look and I was like, it said that he was signing with the Jaguars to be a tight end. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like enough. Like how many? Like it's who else after 8 years of being away from the NFL gets to, one, get a second chance, and two, be able to change positions and play a completely different position than who else but Tim Tebow gets these opportunities? What did he do to deserve this? Like he gets all these opportunities, whether it be in the NFL, in Major League Baseball, in television, in, everything, acting, whatever. Why is this guy always getting these opportunities? Doesn't make sense to me. He's never showed that he's been adequate at anything he's done. He was a great college quarterback, but a lot of college quarterbacks don't translate into the NFL. And why would he now translate into a successful tight end? Does not make any sense to me. I think it's stupid, and I think it's a distraction from when everybody should be focused on making sure Trevor Lawrence is successful. Now we're going to bring in this sideshow and Tim Tebow. It's just a bad look for me. I do not like it at all.
Yeah, and again, I'm a big Tebow fan. Just I love his story. I love him in college. I love his like leadership stuff. But in this scenario, and same thing with the Mets too, it was just like really like he's taking a spot away from someone who's like actually earned it. Like you're telling
Exactly.
me,
Exactly.
again, unless there's something that 31 other teams don't know about Tim Tebow at the tight end position, like there's got to be a someone, anybody else who's more deserving. And then I heard a rumor they were like, oh well, they're bringing him in to mentor Trevor Lawrence and like help him learn the offense. I'm like, well, then just bring him in as a coach. Make him the offensive coordinator if that's the case, or the QB coach. Like you don't need to make him a tight end. Like again, it just, and Lord knows he's starting too. Like
Oh God.
he's going to be the starting
Of
tight
course.
end.
Yeah. It
So
doesn't make
it
any
just,
sense.
again, it just seems like a little bit of a circus move. Like I
And
just
why
I
now?
can't see it panning out.
Why at 33 years old? I mean, if you remember 10 years ago, everyone was saying he should have moved to tight end 10 years ago. And then
Mm-hmm.
he didn't want to do that. He was too stubborn. He wanted to be a quarterback. Quarterback obviously didn't work out. It didn't work out with Broncos, didn't work out with the Jets, didn't work out with the Eagles, didn't work out with the Patriots. Then he
Yeah,
goes to play baseball for 5 years, and now he thinks he can just come back and change positions out of nowhere. And in the NFL, like it just doesn't
yeah,
work. Now I think he should be, commended for his perseverance and, the things
but
that he does is good for him.
like,
Great.
yeah, but
But like, come on.
perseverance, like
Like,
getting the opportunity, that's a separate issue. Like him, I guess physically going through this quote unquote change is one thing, but it's like him getting this opportunity, like to me, isn't like, oh, like
imagine
he's
being a
so great.
kid that sat through the whole draft weekend. You're a tight end, right? Out of college, you're sitting the whole draft weekend. You're waiting by the phone now after not getting drafted, waiting for a call from a organization to sign you as an undrafted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
And this is your life. You've been a football player
Yeah,
your whole life, and you want that chance in the NFL. And this 33-year-old, circus is
yeah,
taking an opportunity from you to prove yourself as a football player, and you're 21 years old. That's horrible. Like that's not
yeah.
fair.
I,
Um,
I agree
and
too.
it's not. Tebow's not doing it for money. He has more money than God from all the business
Oh
ventures
yeah,
he
of
does.
course.
So like, it's hard because I don't want to like stop someone from like following their dreams and like realizing their goals and doing all this
Mm-hmm.
shit. But like at the end of the day, if you're Tim Tebow and you're 33 years old and you have like the supermodel wife and you did all this shit, like just go away. Just do your TV, like do your
Yeah.
SEC network stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice living. Like why do you need to
Great
be the
gig.
tight end of
Yeah.
the why do you need to be the tight end of the Jaguars? I think it's I'm on the fence because I don't want to be a bad guy, but you know what? I will. Like
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you don't
it's
want to be a
stupid.
hater. Mm-hmm.
You know what? I liked Tim Tebow when he was a quarterback. I liked him on the Jets. I wanted him to start over Sanchez. I wanted to see that happen. But enough's enough. Like at
Yeah.
some point, you just got to hang it up and just move on with your life. And I think he's turning a lot of people off because
I think so too. Yeah.
not that he's a bad guy, but like, why do you deserve to constantly, you know, have things falling into your lap? Like that doesn't like the normal person, like the like OG like normal person doesn't have these things fall into their laps, and that can turn a lot of people off.
Yeah. I was pretty stunned by the initial kind of outroar by everybody on Twitter and stuff like that about like how mad they were that he was getting an opportunity. And it's kind of interesting to see that I would say the heavy majority is pretty kind of angry at it. Like
Yeah,
at
people
first
were mad
glance, like,
about the
oh,
baseball thing.
yeah, you're like, oh, Tebow's back. That's cool. He's a cool name. And now it's like, oh, Tebow's back at 33. It's like,
Hmm.
it feels just regurgitated. It just feels like a publicity stunt.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe it works out. Obviously played under Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
That connection really like he's not getting that opportunity anywhere else. But if you think in terms of the organization, like you'd rather all the attention be on making sure Trevor Lawrence is accounted for and taken care of. And now we got to deal with this thing. I don't know. Bad look for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being
No, I'm with
pissed
you there
off.
too. Again, I don't want to be a hater, but I think in this scenario, like we both said, I feel like there's a lot more deserving people out there. And the way I would kind of guess, and we can come back to this in a year, but I don't foresee him having any impact at the tight end position on the team.
Yeah,
From a
I don't know.
leadership standpoint, different story. From like whether he's coaching up Trevor Lawrence, different story. But X's and O's and from a stat perspective and wins and losses, I don't know what he's
Yeah,
bringing
I'm
to the
not sure
table at
he's gonna
33.
make. I'm not sure he's making the team. But just the idea that he gets a chance when like a kid doesn't
Mhm.
undrafted out of college, or maybe like there's a veteran tight end that doesn't want his career to end quite yet. Maybe he's 33 and has played for the last 10 years and he can't get a job right
Yeah.
now as a free agent, and now Tim Tebow does. I think it's stupid. But
Yeah.
life's not fair. I think that's important for everyone to realize, and this is just
Mhm.
another example of it. Um, before we head out, is there anything we did not get to that you wanted to get
so
into?
this will hopefully be released, whether it be Tuesday or Wednesday, but also on Wednesday, something to look out for is the schedule gets released.
Yes,
So
love that.
if you're
Another prime time show that the NFL has to fucking shove down our throats instead of just giving
that's
it.
what I mean. So
The NFL is the
my-
definition of this could have just been an email kind of league. Like,
oh yeah,
stupid.
that's perfect right there. My last question to you is, how many primetime games do you think, besides the Thursday that everyone gets, how many primetime games do you think the Giants get?
I think people are expecting the Giants to be better. So last year they had a Thursday against Phillies. I did it again against the Eagles. And then I think they had 2 Mondays. They had one against the Buccaneers.
Steelers was early on.
Yeah, week 1 against the Steelers, and then they had another one against the Buccaneers. I think they'll get one more. So I think they're going to get 3 and the Thursday game. So because they're playing the Buccaneers again, and obviously New York's the biggest market. So they're going to do Super Bowl champions against New York. And then they also play the Chiefs. So that's, obviously Patrick Mahomes against New York. And then obviously the NFC East games, they're going to get a primetime slot just because of the division they're in and how many eyes are on that, whether it be against Dallas or against Philadelphia or against Washington. I'll go 3 primetime plus the Thursday equaling 4 primetime games. Turning the table on you, what are we thinking with the Dolphins?
So again, logically speaking, you would say they got Tua, they got a little bit of a new team on the up and up. However, they never get primetime games. Last year they had a week 3 Thursday night game against Jacksonville. So I'm going to continue on the trend that they're going to be slightly disrespected, and they're going to get one Thursday against probably maybe like the Colts, probably something kind of lower market. And then I bet you they get one Monday night game. That's it. I bet you it's just the 2 in total primetime games. That would be my guess.
Now they play the NFC East, right?
Well, they play the Giants.
They play the Giants, just the Giants. Now, last time the Giants and Dolphins faced off, it was a Monday night game, if I remember correctly.
That was awesome. Yeah,
that was fun.
Awesome.
I remember Odell had 2 touchdowns in that game.
Yep, that was real cool.
That was, how long ago was that?
That was
I was
2015.
in college.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was 2015.
I hate time, man. It goes too fast.
I know.
But that might be a prime time.
I would love that opening weekend if it was Giants Dolphins.
There's a lot of Giants fans, a lot of Dolphins fans. I think that's a move. Obviously, the 2 young quarterbacks and the 2
teams in similar circumstances.
2 first-round wide receivers. So why not?
I would love that.
Do you count those weird Saturday games as prime time?
Not really, because usually those are flexed at the end.
Yeah,
like I don't really. That's not like initially what's in the cards for them.
Did they have a Sunday? They had a Sunday night game. The Dolphins did last year, right?
No, they had a Saturday night against the Raiders.
Oh, so they didn't have an NBC?
Nope, nothing.
I think we asked them to do it. We asked them. We kind of thought they would on the show, and then they ended up not doing it. But I don't think I've ever heard Carrie Underwood sing about the Dolphins pregame. I don't think it's ever
and I don't think I will this year either.
Oh man, no man. I don't even think Carrie Underwood knows the Dolphins exist. I
agree.
Maybe Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth. Maybe they don't know the Dolphins exist either. I don't think. I'm trying to think the last time the Dolphins were on NBC. It had to be like 10 years ago.
They haven't. I'm pretty sure the last
even the Dolphins playoff games are like Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's just and this is the thing. The biggest issue with primetime games is that for teams like the Giants and Dolphins they're 2 teams that need to show out to themselves, obviously, and to the national media. But what always happens is those games, they crumble. At least that's what the old Dolphins do. We'll see what the new Dolphins do.
Giants
but now with the Giants, it's the same thing.
And you know what? Like, personally, I'd rather my team play at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Like, I don't need to wait another extra 24 hours or wait until 8 o'clock.
Or even an extra day.
Like, I have things to do. Like, give me my 1 o'clock game on Fox, or in your case, CBS, and let's just get on with the rest of my Sunday. Like, I really don't like I'll deal with
yeah,
the four,
I'm
I'll deal with
with
the
you
four,
there.
I'll deal with the 4 o'clock. Like that's fine. I'll do 4 o'clock. But like if I have to wait till 8:30 and then or even Monday night, like
Monday is tough. Yeah.
Monday's tough because you're watching all the games Sunday and you're like, I'm bored. I want to watch
Yeah.
my team.
Mhm.
So I don't know. We'll see. That comes out on Wednesday, I think,
Yep.
the 12th.
Yeah, Wednesday.
So I'm sure we'll talk about that. I'm curious. The Giants always seem to get Dallas week 1 on the road. They didn't last year. They got the Steelers. I'm trying to think what the best or the most likely week 1 matchup would be. I'm thinking it might be Eagles with all the controversy with the week 17 kind of mail it in from the Eagles and also the trade on draft night. Maybe they give us a Giants Eagles week 1. If you had to guess, what's your week 1 matchup?
I would say for the Giants, I would say Tampa Bay.
Okay.
I think that's a good
Now that would be that
situation.
Thursday game, right?
Yeah, I think New York's a market that you can't go wrong in, and I think the Giants have
Obviously,
done enough this
anytime
offseason.
even every time Brady also plays the Giants, it's always a thing.
Exactly, and I think that would just make sense. I think that would be cool for both parties. Again, Tom Brady versus the Giants, like you just said, is tale as old as time at this point. So why not? Let's lock it in.
Now let's see. Wait, hold on. Let me give me a second. Is the Giants? Where is the Giants Buccaneers game this year? Is it going to be in the Meadowlands or is it going to be in Tampa? Let me see if I can find this. Because if it's in New York, then maybe they won't because they probably want the Bucks to open at home on that Thursday. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It's in Tampa. So maybe you're onto something.
There we go. That would be my guess.
Did you give me your Dolphins guess for week 1?
My Dolphins guess week 1, I'm going to say either at Buffalo or home against the Giants.
All right. Lock them in. We'll come back next. We'll come back next episode. We'll see if we're right or wrong. Until then, though, for Matt Farrar, my name is Glen and Matt. Hope you guys enjoy the draft. Hope you guys enjoy the schedule release show. Hopefully, there's no concert and they just give it to us. But we will be back next time and we will dissect it all here on Ice the Kicker.